Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll get started. First of all, by welcoming everybody and thanking you all for being here this morning. Very pleased to have you with us. This online session is being organized, as I'm sure you know, by the EUY, the European Union of Yoga. And probably you all know about the European Union of Yoga, but just a few words to, in case anybody doesn't know, it's an organization that was created in 1971 and now consists of 22 federations across 14 European countries. And of course, the two main activities of the European Union of Yoga are the Zinal Congress, usually every year in August, and then the teacher training program, 4-year 500 contact hour teacher training program, which is offered by member federations. The European Union Yoga has been thinking a little bit for a while about how it might foreground spirituality a little bit more in its activities. And this online program, this series of talks, is one of the concrete results, if you like, of that reflection. So we're very pleased that it's come to fruition. Also extremely pleased this morning that we have Peter van Lierde, Krishna, with us to share his insights, and particularly grateful to him because he's already given this talk in Dutch, so he's giving it again this morning for those of us who don't speak Dutch, so we're very grateful to him for that. As you may well know, he has had an association with the Divine Life Society in Rishikesh pretty much throughout his entire life, and is very active in Shivananda charities as well. He has pointed out that he would welcome any questions in the course of his talk. So rather than waiting until the end of his talk, he would actually welcome very much that you ask questions as he is going along. And the best way to do that probably is to go down to the bottom of your screen into reactions, and you'll see that you have the option there to raise your hand. So you can put your hand up, put your virtual hand up, and he will then be able to get you to ask you a question if you wish. Okay, so if you have any questions that occur to you as he is going along, please do ask them. We'll also, I think, have some time at the end, should there be any more questions that you want to ask at that point. Okay, so I think that's all I need to say. His talk is on the heart in the Upanishads. We're looking forward to hearing him. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. Welcome everybody. It's nice to see that there are a lot of nationalities, because that gives a different feeling, because we're all connected from, I don't know from how many spaces and how many countries, but it gives the feeling of being a bit united and being connected. And being connected, of course, is all that the heart is about. The heart is about being connected. So we all know what the heart means in our own life, and we all know what daily is the importance of our heart in our life, on the level of emotional life, on the level of psychological life, on the level of physical life for some people who have heart problems and heart care and things like that, and on the level of mystical life, because the heart combines all those three levels. That's where all these things come together, and that's the place from where we deal with all these things: the psychological life, the inner life, the outer life, the emotions, and also our mystical feelings and our mystical aspirations. They all live in the heart, and it's from that place, it's like a workplace in our daily life, it's from that place that we usually act and react. But what we wanted to do today is have a look into the scriptures, into the spiritual teachings of India, into the Vedic culture and the Vedic scriptures, what they say about the heart. What is the concept of the heart, which we can find in the scriptures, and especially in the Upanishads. So I will ask Luke to have, I made a little drawing about the spiritual scriptures. There we are. It's good to know where to have a little bit of insight where these verses and ideas come from. Can everybody see the tree? Luke, is it completely on there? Okay. This is a small drawing about the scriptures, which we know from India. It's a tree because the scriptures are growing. They're growing from the roots and from the soil where the roots are planted in. And out of the soil of creation, of being, there comes the scriptures. We can see that on the bottom left are the Vedas. There's the 4 Vedas, the Rig, the Sama, the Yajur, and the Atharva Veda. Now, it's best to understand where these scriptures come from. The picture is that you have the universe, and the universe is the reflection of the absolute. In the universe is comprised all we know. Everything we know and don't know is in the universe, from the start of the universe till the end of the universe. That goes on for billions of years, and everything happens in there. All the names and forms and all the creations and the depth of everything, it's all in the universe. Now, imagine that the universe would sing, would have a sound, and would sing and create a song. The rishis in the old times, they heard the songs in their meditation. And the reflection of the song of the universe is the Vedas. So it's the sound of the universe, and it's the essence of the universe, which was perceived in their deep meditation, and which was created in words and verses and hymns and rhythms and meanings. So in effect, the Vedas is the song of the universe, the song of the universe to all and everybody and everything which is in there. It's the song of everything to everything. It's the song of all to all. It's the message of all to all. That is reflected in the Vedas. That's the idea which is behind everything. We can see this, there's 4 Vedas. Sometimes it's only 3 Vedas which are mentioned, the Rig, the Sama, and the Yajur, and the Atharva is later, or sometimes they speak about 3 Vedas, Triveda, and sometimes it's about Chatur Veda, the 4 Vedas. So there's a little distinction between the 2, but we're not going to go into that. But we have, if we look at the Vedas and we look at the Rig, the Sama, and the Yajur, if we look at the idea of the song of the universe, then the Rig Veda will give us the hymns, the verses, will give us the words of the song. So all these hymns are noted in the Rig Veda. The Sama Veda it's a simplification, but it's easier to understand it that way. The Sama Veda will give us the instructions on how to sing this song, how to pronounce the words in the right way, on how to have the intonation of the words, what the words need to reflect, and the feeling which goes with the words, and in which rhythm we have to sing the words. So without the Samaveda, it's very difficult to create a song because we only have the words on paper. And then the Yajurveda will reflect the fruits of the song, because if we sing a song, it will create an effect. It will create something in space. It will create something in the surroundings. It will create something in the heart of other people, or even in the feelings of the animals. And some music will influence the nature and the plants and things like that. So there's 3 steps in this song of the universe. It's the verses, the words, and then it's the singing and how to sing, and then it's the effect of the fruit of the singing. These 3 combined are what we would call the offer, the sacrifice of the universe to itself and to everything what is in there and everybody who is in there. So these are the 3 main Vedas. The Atharva Veda, for those who wonder, they will give special instructions if, for example, we need a special song for somebody who's dying. It's a special purpose, which the Atharva Veda will provide for that purpose. And it's geared towards a special effect or a special fruit. So those are the 4 Vedas. These 4 Vedas are not, it's not just one book. It's all different books, and there is an evolution through time. And mainly it's the Samhitas, the Brahmanas, the Aranyakas, and the Upanishads. We're not going to go into all this, but we're concerned with the Upanishads and what the Upanishads are telling us about the heart of the song, the heart of the song of the universe. And as you can see on the drawing, the Samhitas, Brahmanas, and Aranyakas come first, and then the Upanishads are the later books of the Vedas. The Upanishads are the philosophical reflection of the Vedas. Whatever comes before, we sing the song and we do it in the right way, we make the offering in the right way, and the Upanishads will have a philosophical reflection of all this. What does it mean in human life? What does it mean in our society? What does it mean in our life as a human in society, and our society as an entity in the world, and the world as part of the universe? And how is it all connected with each other? So it's a whole system, and it's a lot of viewpoints and a lot of different doors to enter all these questions. And as there are many different rishis who wrote the Upanishads, the way of expressing will be different, the way of wording will be different, the way of thinking will be a bit different, and the result will be a bit different. But underlying all these differences is the same stream, is the same tune, is the same primeval sound, which pervades everything. We will go into that a little bit later on. So this is the basis, this is the start of all the other things on the tree. All the other scriptures, in a way, evolve from the nectar and the feeding and the juice of the Upanishads. If we look at the Gita, in the Gita it says that the Upanishads are the cows, or is the cow, and the Gita is the milk which is produced by the cow. Krishna is the milker, and Arjuna is the one who enjoys the milk, who enjoys the nectar of the Upanishads. So everything else evolves out of the Upanishads. And we will see why it's a little bit important to see this, because if you look at the tree, on the very top is the Saddarshana. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Sadarshana, with the different philosophies, but out of these basic thinking, out of this vast amount of scriptures, because it is mentioned that there are 108 Upanishads, but others say there's 1008 Upanishads, and so on and so on. So there's no simple counting or no simple fixed amount of scriptures or Upanishads, but out of all these vast amount of scriptures, of this enormous amount of verses and these different ideas, have grown 6 philosophical schools. And they're mentioned there: Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Samkhya, Yoga, Mimamsa, and Vedanta. Basically what we know in the West, and basically what we are encountering, is the Samkhya and Yoga. Yoga is mostly the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which are, I think it's the book best known in the West, and most people are familiar with it or practice it or try to study it. That's what we encounter most in different yoga schools. The second one is Vedanta, which is in one form or another also quite prominent. Why is it important to see these things? Because they give a different point of view and different intakes into the Upanishads. For example, the Yoga and the Samkhya is a non-dualistic system, and the Vedanta is a dualistic system, and Vedanta will be non-dualistic. And there's a large or a quite important difference between the two, or an enormous difference and distance between the two. Some Upanishads will try to bridge the gap, or will try to combine the non-dualistic vision and the dualistic vision. But we will go into that a little bit later on. So what comes out of the Upanishads is not a dogma. It's a living thing. It are teachings which are evolving in time and evolving in the psyche of the humans and of our society and our way of thinking. And if our interpretation of the Upanishads are going one way, then there will be a counter movement in the other way, and it will mingle with each other, and they will reflect each other, and there will become new ideas, and so on. That's the way it goes with human thinking, and it's with thinking of and the history of philosophy. There is a quite interesting book from Karen Armstrong. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Karen Armstrong. Maybe Joy is familiar with it. And it's called The Great Transformation. And it is telling us about the movement in the human psyche, the collective human psyche, in the collective way of thinking in the human psyche, and how we look at things around 800 before Christ, BC, 800 BC. And that's where the Upanishads were written, mostly. There's some early Upanishads, there's later Upanishads, and they have a quite large span of time. But the early Upanishads are estimated to have been written around 800 before Christ. It's also the time when there is an enormous evolution in the thinking in China, and it's also a time when there is an enormous evolution of thinking in the Greek peninsula, and where the Greek philosophers are putting down their thoughts and their way of thinking. In a way, you could see it as human, which becomes more conscious of what he is, or it's a way of an added dimension. It's a fourth way of thinking. It's a moment in history when humankind is a little bit less concerned about surviving, about having enough food, about having enough shelter to get through the winter and through the seasons, and about having enough safety to live his life. And there is a time when he takes the time to reflect on his life and what is the meaning behind all this. It's also there, and it's also after that, but in human history, sometimes there's some turning points in the way our psyche evolves, and this is supposed to be a turning point. So that's the time of the Upanishads. The other scriptures come out of that and come a little bit later, or much later. For example, the Vedanta movement, we can link to Shankaracharya, Adi Shankaracharya, and he's only around 800 after Christ. So there's a big difference between the two. It's actually the story of mankind. There's a movement which comes, there is a transformation in our psyche, and then there's some pure ideas, and it's very inspiring, and there's a whole movement around it, and everybody is excited and is going into it, and it's driven by the heart. And then our human nature sometimes takes over, and the pureness is not so pure anymore after some time. And in the Indian example, it is that the idolatry took over, and our thinking becomes less clear, and it's been influenced and by our human nature of greed and passion and things like that. And then there's a counter movement, which was Shankaracharya, which wanted to go back to the earlier pure ideas of the Upanishads, as Shankara saw it. Out of that came the Vedanta. So it's the stream of life, it's the stream of history, it's the stream of philosophical history, and it's the stream of creation, which we are going through. And this is a little bit reflected in the tree and in all the outcrops of the tree and all the blossoming and all the different leaves and all the different inspiration the tree gives. But throughout the whole tree and around the whole tree and the whole nature which provides the tree is the song of the universe. I don't know whether there are any questions. Are we going pretty fast, or is it difficult to follow, or is it pretty clear?
I think it's pretty clear for me. Thank you. I don't know about other people. If anybody has a question, please do come in.
Yes, there was a question about the Ayurveda and things like that. And the Ayurveda is mentioned in the tree in the 4, you see at the bottom left, the 4 Upavedas. That's where the Ayurveda is. It's more scientific approach. It's not the ritualistic or the philosophical approach as the 4 Vedas. The 4 Upavedas is the Ayurveda. Another thing which is in there is the way how to build and things like that on the energy lines and things like that.
I think Martina had her hand up. I don't know, Martina, did you have a question?
No, I just want to say everything is okay. It's
okay. Thank you.
It's also, I don't know what is new for the people who are listening and what is very well known and things like that. So you have to bear along a little bit. We have to bear along with each other on this a little bit. Okay, now let's go from there and see. Let's get back to the heart. Let's get back to the song and see what the Upanishads are telling us about the heart. I noticed some verses about the heart out of the Upanishad, out of different Upanishads. It's just a collection. It's a small collection because in practically all the Upanishads, the heart is mentioned. And there are some verses on the heart, and they more or less reflect the same idea. So we will read all of these and then try to study a little bit one or two of them. Verses about the heart, Hridaya in the Upanishads. The heart where the soul is at rest and finds its peace. And the heart where the soul is at work and produces its heart. He plus art is heart. It's an idea from Swami Satchidananda, who lived in the United States and had an ashram there. It still exists in the United States, and who was a disciple of Swami Shivananda. And his idea was he and art is heart. He is the one who creates, and the art is the inspiration. The creation and the inspiration, or the creation and the offering is the heart. That was his idea behind heart. He liked to play with words and has some pun on words. So sometimes it was a little bit of fun. Let's see the first verse. In the space within the heart lies the indweller of all. The Sanskrit terms are Savasya or Ishvara, the Lord of all, the ruler of all. He does not become greater by good actions, karma, nor smaller by evil actions, also karma. He is the bridge that serves as the boundary to keep the different worlds apart. Him, the Brahmanas seek to know by the study of the Vedas, by sacrifices, by sharing. This verse already gives us a very good insight of what the Upanishad is trying to convey us from the deeper meaning of what the heart is and what the heart does and how it works. We will get back to this verse later on as a start of seeing what the Upanishad is trying to tell us about the heart. But first we'll read all the other verses to give us a broader view and a deeper insight into what different Upanishads say about the heart. The questions which are automatically following out of this first verse is, what or who is Ishvara, and what is the concept of Ishvara? Because it's a key understanding in this verse, because the Ishvara is the indweller of all, the Lord of all, the ruler of all. What do the Upanishads mean by this? So we will get back to it. Let's read the second verse. This is myself within the heart, smaller than the grain of rice, than a grain of millet, or than the kernel of a grain of millet. This is myself within the heart, greater than the earth, greater than the atmosphere, greater than the sky, greater than these worlds. It's from the Chandogya Upanishad. The first one is from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, and the second verses are from the Chandogya. Those are the two eldest Upanishads. They're the most voluminous Upanishads. They're the basic Upanishads, out of which sometimes verses are taken by other Upanishads, which are looked at in a different way by other Upanishads. But these are, together with some others, with the Katha and the Isha Upanishad, Mandukya Upanishad, are the basic Upanishads. The second one from the Chandogya Upanishad, containing all action, sacrifice karma, containing all desires, containing all others, containing all tastes, encompassing the whole world, without speech, without concern. This is the self of mind within the heart. This is Brahman. The verse connected to is, verily a person is a sacrifice. The next verse, now here in this city of Brahman is an abode, a small lotus flower. Within it is a small space. What is within that small space should be sought, for that assuredly is what one should desire to understand. Verily, as far as this space extends, so far extends the space within the heart. Verily, so far as the world space or the universal space extends, so far extends the space within the heart. Within it, indeed, are contained both heaven and earth, both fire and air, both sun and moon, lightning and the stars. Whatever there is in this world and whatever is not, all is contained within the heart. All is contained within it. Verily, the self abides in the heart. This is from the Chandogya Upanishad. I think these verses are quite clear and very unclear, because whatever we know is contained in the heart, and whatever we don't know is contained in the heart. Whatever we can measure is contained in the heart, and whatever we can't measure is contained in the heart. So it includes everything, but the everything is not defined. It's open, it's without borders, it's ungraspable. There's a transcendent aspect to it. There's all the things we know, but all the things we don't know. So it cannot be grasped, it cannot be contained. Everything is there, but everything else is also there. Everything we have no idea about, everything we can't imagine is in there. So it's the Upanishads always try to bring us the wholeness, but the wholeness is immeasurable. The wholeness is not, there's no outline of the wholeness, there's no border of the wholeness. The wholeness is an open space. It's without end. Let's see a little bit further what some other Upanishads are saying about it. There's not too many left here on the page, because otherwise it becomes too complicated. Verily, the nature of the ether within the space of the heart is the same as a supreme peace. Verily, the nature of the ether within the space of the heart is the same as the syllable Om. This is from the Maitreya Upanishad. And it's important because here the syllable Om is mentioned as within the space of the heart. And we will go back to that later on as we try to have a look at the different worlds of the different ways of consciousness in the heart. He who knows Brahman as the real, as knowledge, and as the infinite, placed in the secret place of the heart, and in the highest heaven, realizes all desires along with Brahman. It's from the Taittiriya Upanishad, one of the important Upanishads as well. The idea behind this verse is that the one who is established within the heart is in that way connected with the whole universe. And if you're connected with the whole universe, then all desires will be satisfied. We will go back into that as well at the end of the lecture. I think this is all which we noted down. There's another one. Yes, we will get. Look, can we scroll back to the first verse of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad? Yes, because I like to reread that one before we get into the next item. In the space of the heart lies the indweller of all, the Lord of all, the ruler of all. He does not become greater by good actions, nor smaller by evil actions. He is the bridge that serves as the boundary to keep the different worlds apart. Him the Brahmanas seek to know by the study of the Veda, by sacrifice, by sharing. And the three questions which we will try to look into is who or what is Ishvara? What is the concept of Ishvara? What is meant or understood as the different or the three worlds? And who or what is the bridge between these worlds? Okay, let's first have a look at Ishvara. Look, can you scroll on? Yes, thank you. I think Luke will send you all the different text which we are using here, all the text about Ishvara and the different verses. I think Luke will send it to all the participants.
Yes, I will. With the recording, I will also send this text that you show now.
Okay, and also if there are questions about it, you can put them now, or you can send an email or things like that. I will try to help you if I can. But it's good to have to read these verses from time to time, because we read the verse now and we have a certain impression about it, and we have a certain understanding of it, and we imagine a lot about all the words which are in there. But if we will reread these verses in another 6 months or another year, they will sound a little bit different, and we look at them a little bit different, and our understanding will have evolved in a certain way, and the song in there will sound a little bit different. So it's good to read them from time to time, and also to know that all these verses are like little seeds which the Upanishads or the Gita, if you read the Gita, the verses of the Gita, which are sometimes very, very similar. If you read them, they're like little seeds planted in our minds and in our psyche and in our intellect, but especially in our subconsciousness. And these little seeds will grow, and they will grow a little bit slow, or they will grow a little bit quicker as we take them with us in our meditation. These seeds will receive the moisture and the water and the power of growing by the nectar of our meditation. So the silence of the meditation will make the seeds grow, and it will evolve our understanding of these verses. This is the beauty of it. This is the beauty of the song of the Upanishads and the song of the universe. So in our heart, as the verse of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishads tells us, lies the ruler of all, the indweller of all. In our heart lies the essence of all, that which connects us to the universe. This is the word Ishvara, and the beauty or the problem with Indian thinking and Vedic thinking is that, of course, one concept, one word can have several meanings, different meanings in different ways of thinking. In the different philosophical schools, it will have a different meaning. The word Ishvara will have a lot of connotations according to the way we live and according to the way we think. So I wrote down some of them. For example, Ishvara, that which is essential to whatever that is, will, for example, for the Shaivites, the followers of Shiva, one of the main religious groups in India, you have the Shaivites, the Vaishnavites, and then the Shaktas, the different Indian ways of approaching religion. The Shaivites will see Ishvara as Shiva, Maheshwara, Parameshwara. It's a god with attributions and with a certain way of dealing with things. The Vaishnavites will see Ishvara as Vishnu, Bhagavan or Krishna. It's definitely an image and a way of imagining the highest principle. One of the philosophical schools, Nyaya, will see Ishvara as the source, which it's quite different, but it's still the same. But in our mind, it gives a different feeling. The Vaisheshika will define Ishvara as that what rules the universe through the laws of nature. You see, the first two are a theistic approach, and the following ones are an atheistic approach. There's no image of God connected to Ishvara. The source is quite nice, what rules the universe through the laws of nature. In Samkhya, it's not defined, it's irrelevant. In yoga, it's the personal object or figure of devotion. It's the personal God, which might be a Hindu god, or might be any god, or might be another image on which you can concentrate your devotion. In Mimamsa, another philosophical school, it's absent. And in Advaita Vedanta, it's the source of all, the all-pervading primal vibration of the universe that goes along with Nyaya and Vaisheshika. In the Vishistadvaita, another school, it is Brahman, Vishnu, and in Dvaita, it is Krishna again. So this are the different interpretations of the term Ishvara. It's, if you reread the verse, you can try to read it with what sounds best for you, what gives you the best handle, or the best intake, or the best tool to understand the verse. Because some people are raised as strict Catholics, and for them, God might have a certain image, a certain murti, a certain pictography in their minds. So you can use that, whatever is there in your mind, you can use it, but don't think it's only that. For different people, it has different meanings, and all the meanings are just an instrument to understand the verse. So use the instrument which is suitable for you, which you can apply for your way of thinking. That's why all these different schools of philosophies are there. If it's only one, it could maybe be applied by some people and not be applied by many other people. But there's as many schools as possible, that everybody can use one tool or another to get into the same verse. And this is very important to understand.
Krishna, there is a question in the chat. A question.
Okay.
About translations precisely, so yeah.
Luke, can you see the question?
Mute myself. She asked Marianne, this is so vast and not possible to grab in a lifetime. It is hard as a student to know where to start. I have read some Upanishads and now would like to study more the Krishna Upanishads. Do you have a suggestion on a translation? I have two, but not sure about the quality. And is there a kind of a hierarchy in what to study or read first?
I think it's a question which will be difficult to deal with right here and now. So I would prefer if you would send an email or put it on or send it later, so we can go into it later.
Okay. I will mention your email address when I send the link to the recording and this text.
Yes, about the Krishna Upanishad. But it's indeed, it's a very vast subject, and it's a good, there's a part of the question which is very interesting, and the person says, I don't know how to get into it, or which way is the best way to get into it. Actually, in the verse of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, the ways of getting into it are already mentioned. At the end of the verse, it's by studying the Vedas, it is by sharing. And in the other verse, in the Maitri Upanishad, it's also mentioned, it is by repeating Om, or by meditating on Om, or uttering the sound Om. So these are already some ways of getting into it. Let's go to the next. I think it's a drawing. Yes. It's a little drawing to explain to us better the concept of Ishvara and the concept of what we're dealing with in the verses about the heart. It's a little drawing about what resides in the heart. If it says the whole universe, whatever is there and whatever is not there. So I've tried to put it in a little drawing. And it depicts, it shows us the beginning of the universe, the beginning of whatever we know and the beginning of whatever we don't know, and the beginning of this life and all life which has been started with the Big Bang. And if you see at the bottom left, it's the Big Bang, which comes out of whatever it could be, a black hole or a dark hole, or a place beyond time and space, from where the whole universe erupts and is evolving. This is the Big Bang. And then the universe will expand and it will disappear at the end of time. It will disappear into another black hole. This is the idea of the picture. The universe at the beginning of time, just at the Big Bang itself, the universe has been created by time and space. It's the origin of time and space. Before the universe, before the Big Bang, there's no time and space. And from the Big Bang on, there's a creation of time and space. And in the Upanishads, it is mentioned that time and space is woven like warp and woof and makes a tissue. It's a big carpet, time and space. So the time is on the bottom line and the space is going across and it's expanding. Space is still expanding, and at the end of time it will comprime again and it will disappear again. So this already is the view of the Upanishads. The time-space continuum is explained in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishads. In a lot of verses, it's quite beautiful to read, because apparently the rishis, and even at that time, they were reflecting on time and space and how it was all created and how it encompasses our world. It's there's a beautiful verse of Swami Vivekananda which says that, which combines time, space, and causality. These are the three things that's the theater where we all play in: time, space, and causality. If you look again at the picture, just after the Big Bang is Ishvara. Ishvara is the second, or the hundredths of second, or the millionths of second, where time and space is potentially there, and when the whole universe is potentially there, but it has not manifested itself. That's why some of the philosophical schools call it the source. It's the source of the river, it's the source of the ocean, which comes out of the river, before the first drop comes out of it. It's all there, but it hasn't manifested itself. It hasn't started to take name and form. So it's still combined, but everything is in there potentially. Yes, somebody asked, or causality. This is causality. This is the out of which it's the cause of all causes. It's out of the cause out of which all the effects come. This is the source of all the effects. This is the primal cause, Ishvara. It's the source. This is the idea of Ishvara. That means if it is the source, whatever comes afterwards is a reflection of the source, or is permeated by the source, has the essence of the source in it. It's the very essence of all the names and forms and all the manifestations is the primal essence. The primal essence out of Ishvara will evolve and will take all different names and forms, but the substance, the primal substance, remains the same. It's just the name and forms which will evolve and will look different. Out of this, and this goes together with the scientific way of thinking of these days about astronomy, about the universe. Out of the source, out of the primal being, the potential being, out of this comes the primal vibration. It's not that there comes some material out of it already. It's the primal vibration, and the primal vibration, it's the primal reflection of the song of the universe. It's what they call in the Upanishads, they call it the Udgita, the original sound, of the eldest sound, of the primal sound. That's a primal vibration. Out of this primal vibration comes sound. The sound is still a little bit different from a primal vibration. Out of the sound they form words. All different sounds will form our words, or will form our alphabet, and out of our alphabet some words come. And out of the words become the forms. The cause of the forms, which is already a little bit gross, is also always very subtle. The cause of whatever is always more subtle than the effect. Every effect, everything we see, everything we think, everything we come across, everything we look at, the source of that effect is always more subtle than the effect itself. Out of this the primal vibration, the sound, the words, the form, evolves the whole universe. In the beginning, it was very subtle, and then it becomes grosser, and then the gases will form, and the gases will form into planets, and the planets will have life on it, and out of that life will humankind evolve, and so on and so on. Because as humans, we are very young compared to the 13.8 billion years that the universe exists so far. What this drawing also reflects is the way the Vedas and the Upanishads look at this universe. They see as this song as a ritual. But there's a song on the background, I don't know which one it is. Okay. I don't know whether it's the song of the universe. I think everything is the song of the universe, so it must be included. There we are again. Look, can you see who's not muted? Okay, thank you.
Everyone just scream into the void.
Have we done with it? Okay. The way the Vedas and the Upanishads look at this whole thing is like a ritual. The ritual of getting born, and the ritual of existing, and the ritual of disappearing. And it's the same as in our own life, and in the life of our planet. It's the life of the universe. And all this is a reflection of the absolute Brahman. The absolute Brahman is before the universe and will continue to exist after the universe. It's beyond time and space. So this whole universe, with all these billions of years, and with us thrown into it, or flowing into it, or swimming into it, this whole universe is a little bit like the Native American Indians had a very beautiful expression for it. He said that life, and the life of the whole universe, is like the breath of a buffalo on a cold winter morning. And the breath of a buffalo on a cold winter morning, it comes in a second and it's gone in a second. And it's something you see in the air, and then it's gone again. This is the idea behold the whole universe in the Vedas. It's the singing of the song, and then it disappears, and then another song will be sung somewhere else, and will take a different form and a different sounds. So also in this picture is mentioned in this case, the three Vedas. The Rig will be the hymns of the sound of the song. The Sama will be the offering, will be the expression of the song, will be the singing of the song, and then the Yajur will be the fruit of the offer. The hymns will be Nama, the Sama will be Rupa, and the Yajur will be Karma, Nama, Rupa, Karma. That's what's happening in this universe, Nama, Rupa, Karma. Name, form, and the fruits of all these things. Throughout this universe is there's a little question about the Atharva Veda. As I mentioned before, the Atharva Veda will give us some special formulas to create a special effect. So I have not put it in here, but it should have been in here, or it could have been in here. So throughout this universe is one consistent underlying primal sound and primal vibration, and that primal vibration is expressed in the sound Om, A-U-M, and there's a fourth part of it is the silence, which comes after the expression of the sound Om, A-U-M, and the silence behind it. So all this universe and whatever is beyond this universe is within our hearts. This song, this wind is blowing in our hearts. This is the vast, enormous space inside the tiniest possible existence in the heart. It's a bit of a contradiction, but that's always the case in the Upanishads, because they like to make it clear, but the clearness includes a transcendental aspect, which makes it very unclear, or which makes it a lot broader, which opens up everything into space. Let's see how, it's already 1 hour, so we have to move a little bit on. Now, another thing which we like to make clear from that first verse, in this universe and in our heart, there are the different worlds which are getting connected. How does this universe express itself in our lives? And how does that song express itself in our lives? And I made another drawing. Look if you can show it. The next drawing, yes. Okay. If it's possible to put it on the screen a little bit smaller. Okay, we're getting there. I think there's somebody listening to the radio on the background. In this drawing, it's because how does this all express itself, this life, how does it express itself in our world, in our life, and in our hearts? And this is a drawing about the expression about the different worlds. The Ishvara, the source, is the bridge between the different worlds. The primal sound is the source between the different worlds. So what are these different worlds over which this bridge comes across, which the bridge connects the different worlds? This is expressed in many Upanishads. It's in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. It returns in practically all the Upanishads, the three worlds. But it's especially mentioned in the Mandukya Upanishads and in the states of consciousness, because this primal sound, the sound of the universe, is the sound of consciousness. Which is a verse of the Aitareya Upanishad, that consciousness is Brahman, consciousness is the absolute. This primal sound is consciousness. This consciousness expresses itself on different planes in our human existence, and in the existence of all humans, and in the existence of the whole planet. Because it's not only an individual thing, it's a universal thing, it's a collective thing. It has an individual aspect and it has a collective aspect. So there's a little drawing about the three different worlds, and what we see usually, it's us in the little boat on top. As we are trying to row this ocean of life, this ocean of existence, we try to lead our life and get from one part of the ocean to the other part of the ocean, from birth to death. And we try to cross this in as good a way as possible, and as pleasant a way as possible, and as meaningful a way as possible, and as humanly a way as possible. So, and usually what we see is what we see and perceive with the senses, and what we from all that information, we try to do something with our intellect and with our understanding. And in this way, we try to cross this ocean of samsara. And the ocean of samsara is our view from out of our little boat. And some boats have a sail, and some boats don't have a sail, and some boats are very sturdy, and some boats are leaking a lot, and some boats have a compass, and some boats don't have a compass, and some people in the boats are looking nicely around, and some other ones have one eye, and some other ones are blind, and all those things like that, all those things which goes on in life. This is how we're sailing on top of the ocean. Sometimes we know where we're going to. Very often we don't know where we're going to, and we're turning around in circles, and then we start again, and we find ourselves in the same space of the ocean as we have been before. We lose sight of the moon, which should be guiding us, and so on and so on and so on. This is the waking state. This is what we call the waking state. But there's another state if we go to sleep, and if there's a whole different world which is expressing itself, and it's the world beneath the waves. In the waking state, our consciousness is directed outwardly, is directed to whatever we perceive, is guided by the senses. In the dream state, our consciousness is directed inwardly, into our psyche, into the inner life, into another world. And in the other world inside, it's a completely different world, because we're connected with many other things, and many more things as we perceive outside. It's what we are connected with inwardly is whatever we experienced, whatever we picked up, whatever we perceived through the senses, consciously and very much unconsciously, because we collect a lot of impressions which we're not aware of, but still we connect them and we collect them. And they all lead their lives, all the things we have forgotten from childhood, from parents, grandparents, schools, things which we know about or which we don't know about, they all lead their life inside us. It's a whole jungle inside us, or it's the deep ocean inside us, which is guided by emotional things. It's guided by desires which we are aware of, or desires which we are not aware of. It's guided by which we collected on the way or in our life. It's guided by a lot of things. And this whole life, in effect, is creating the ocean on which we are sailing. It's this deeper ocean which is creating the conditions on which we have to cross the upper ocean. It's the dream state. It's a completely different way, and it's not only individual, because in the dream state, also in the waking state, but very much in the dream state, we're also connected with the collective unconsciousness, what Jung calls the collective unconsciousness. It's the way we are branded and the way we are marked by our society and by the people we are born in. Before the Scottish will be a little bit different from the Dutch people, and they will be a little bit different from Jewish people, or an African person, or an Indian person. So there's a collective part of it as well, on which we bear all the signs and all the impressions and all the stamps in our heart, collective stamps. They also play a role in our life, and they also show themselves in the dream state. So this is a second world, or different world of the life of consciousness. And then you have the third one, which is the causal, or Ishvara, is it called? It's the deep sleep state. The deep sleep state is where the consciousness comes to rest, where the consciousness for a moment is residing. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, they give us the example of a bird which has been flying over the earth with two wings, the waking state and the dream state, and the bird is flying over and over and over. But at a certain time, after seeing all this and leading its life and doing its thing, the bird will settle on a branch of a tree, and it will fold its wings, and it will come to rest. And then the consciousness will rest in its own state. That's where the waves of the mind will calm down, as the Yoga Sutras tells, and a lot of slokas or verses in the Upanishads tell us as well. When the mind comes to rest and the bird folds its wings, and you can see at the bottom of the ocean, it's the waters are quiet, they're not stirred, and everything comes to rest and there is peace. It's the deep sleep state. But all these states, the three worlds, have a substratum. There is something which is underlying on all these states. And there's something which is before these states, during these states, and beyond these states of consciousness. And in the Mandukya Upanishad, it's called the fourth, or the Turiya. Sometimes it's called the Absolute, sometimes it's called Brahman. It's the transcendent part of the three worlds. It's what is always there, what doesn't change. The three worlds change, consciousness expresses itself in different forms, but the underlying doesn't change. Brahman doesn't change, Turiya doesn't change. It can only be spoken about not in definitions, but in indefinitions. For example, it cannot be known, it cannot be described, it's impossible to understand, and things like that. It's always been defined in negation. Whatever you think about it, that's not it. Neti, neti, neti. So this is what's living in the heart. This is what's being connected with the bridge. This is what's being connected with the source, with the underlying principle. And this is what makes the heart well, I'm looking for the best word. This is what makes the heart the principal instrument in our life, the principal space in our life, because all these things find themselves together in our heart. The heart is what collects all these things. And the heart is not only what collects these things, but only what connects these things. And if all these things are connected, then we have a straight entrance and a straight inroad and a straight connection to whatever is beyond and whatever is universal and whatever is underlying. If all these things are connected in the heart, then we have the ticket to the universe. Then if our mind becomes quiet, then we hear the song of the universe. It's sounding in our heart. And if we can hear and feel and live the song of the universe, then it will reflect itself in all these worlds. I will try to explain it again, or whatever we experience in the waking state and in the dream state, whatever we experience when our consciousness is bound outwards, or whatever we experience when our consciousness is directed inwards, all these things we take to the bottom of the heart. All these things we take to the connection with the absolute. All these things we take to the sound of the universe. All these things we connect to the sound of the universe, and we open them up to the sound of the universe. And then as a human being, we give them back to the different states. We give them back to the unconsciousness, and we give them back to the dream state, and we give these things back to the waking state, but permeated by the sound of the universe. This is our gift to the world. This is a gift to our society. This is our gift to our fellow beings. This is our gift to ourselves. It's the work in the heart. It's the connection with the sound of the universe is the art of the heart. And the art of the heart we will express again towards whoever we live with, to the whole universe and to the whole world. The heart is like it's like a workplace. It's like a magical laboratorium where we melt the iron and produce gold, and then we give the gold to whoever needs it in whatever way it is needed. I have a very short little line about what the person I was very much connected with and still are connected with, Swami Chidananda from the Divine Life Society. And look, if you can you show it, because I think it's time to, well, yeah, this is what we're not going to do. We can send it with the people. I think it's time to conclude. It's just a little sentence which I came across from him. Be helpful, desire to serve the society, nation, all creatures, even plants and insects. Paropakaram idam sariram. This body has been given to us in order to benefit others. The body is given for doing good to others. God is in our heart. The human body is a temple of God. All beings are visible and moving temples of a living God. Therefore, have the desire to serve God through all living creatures, that our life be filled with this idea of doing good to others. Swami Chidananda. I like to conclude here because I see it's practically 1 hour and a half. There's one thing I like to tell you: whatever we did here and whatever we study, we're only scratching the surface. There's much, 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 much more. There is a vast universe which invites us to explore it. So if there are some questions, and if people want to leave, I'd like to thank you all for bearing with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Krishna, for that, and for scratching the surface in such a very clear way and giving us a lot of pointers, I think, into how we might go a little bit further into this topic. If anybody has a question at this point, then please feel free to maybe come in, raise your hand, perhaps if there's anything you want to ask, or even just something you would like to say, anything you'd like to express at this point. Yeah, E.
I just want to thank Krishna. It was very clear. The pictures speak to our heart, to our cells. I feel it in the vibration of my body. That was very nicely explained. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I hope to see you all one time, one place, somewhere.
So I think, thank you again. And I think, as Luke already said, he will be sending out the pictures there, the PowerPoint that we saw. So you have it for future reference. And he's also going to be sending out the link to the recording. So again, if there's anything you want to review, maybe you didn't quite understand, you can look again and listen again. And there'll also be in that email, there'll also be a link to a very short survey. So just to get your feedback, if there's anything you want to tell us, any suggestions, then we would like obviously to get your feedback on how you found the session, or any ideas for improving. That would be really helpful. And if you want to come to more talks, obviously there'll be more talks and more practices. There's one tomorrow in French for anybody who speaks French, and then Sunday another one which I think is in Dutch for Dutch speaking people. So each week we have, usually I think the next few weeks, a couple of talks or practices. So do join us again if you can. And thank you again to all of you for coming. Thank you to Krishna. Thank you to Luke for doing all the technical work. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Joyce too for the introduction.
Thank you very much.
Lovely. Thank you
I'm
so
very
much.
glad.